So today we're going to talk about relations and functions. Let's go back to previous lecture. Well, we introduced ordered pairs or points in XY plane. Recall that the defined points, or another name points, ordered pairs, in the plane. In the plane, XY plane, Cartesian plane, or rectangular plane. So remember that here you have x-axis and you have your y-axis, and you have a bunch of points in XY plane, right? So these are your points. Suppose the first point is given to you as 1 and 2. The second point is given to you as 4 and 1. Another point is given to you as the origin, 0 and 0. You might have other points, like this point here, -1 and, let's see, let's move this a little bit down here, -1 and -1. You might have another point, like down here, like 0 and -3. Well, we see that, hey, these points all together construct a set, and we call that set a relation. Definition of a relation. A relation is a collection of points in XY plane. So if you have some points in XY plane, you can put them all in a set and call this a relation. For example, I'm going to define a relation. I'm going to use some capital letters like R, which is equal to, so the relation R, relation R is the set of, I'm going to use curly bracket, the set of, representing set, the set of, what set? The set includes these points, the set of these points, -1 and -1. I'm going to list these points in XY plane. 0 and 0. 0 and 0. Okay, next one. 0 and -3. 0 and -3. Okay. What else do I have? For example, 4 and 1. 4 and 1. And finally, 1 and 2. I can include 1 and 2. I might say, hey, I don't want 1 and 2 in this relation. So I'm going to stop here at 4 and 1. I'm going to define a second relation. S. Relation S is equal to. So I'm going to move it a little bit further down. I need a little bit of space because I'm going to define the domain and range. So S, another relation. So here I say that relation S is defined as the set of, well, I'm going to add this point 1 and 2 and define a new relation, all right? So the set of -1 and -1, 0 and 0, 0 and -3, 4 and 1, and I'm going to include 1 and 2 to define a new relation. Okay, very good. the set of. Very good. Okay. So I have points and I define different relations. Now, when it comes to relations, we are interested in using the domain and the range. I'm going to erase right hand side of the board and define the domain. The domain of a relation, is the collection of all x values. This is the domain. And the range of a relation, is the collection of all y values. Okay, very good. I'm defining two new things, the domain and the range. Okay, perfect. So, what's the domain of R? What's the domain of S? What's the domain of S? What's the range of S? So suppose we want to list the domain and the range of these two relations. So the very first relation says the domain, the definition of domain is the collection of all x values. X values like what? My first x value, -1, 0, 0, and 4. These are my x values. Well, it says, hey, I have -1. Okay, I'm going to copy down -1, comma. I have 0, I'm going to copy down 0. I have second 0. I'm not going to use repetition. When you're representing the domain and range, we do not have repetition. And finally, the last x is 4. Then close the curly bracket. Guys, do not use parentheses. You're not using parentheses to represent domain and range. Parentheses are for tuples. Tuples are different from sets. Now, what about the range? For range, well, it says the collection of all y values. Y values like -1, like 0, like -3, like 1. These are my y values. And I'm going to put them on the same set, -1, comma 0, comma -3, comma 1. So we found the domain and range of the first relation. Now for the second relation. For the second relation, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find all x values and put them in a set, curly bracket. X, x, another x, x, and x with no repetition. We don't need any repetition here. So -1, copy down -1. 0, copy down 0. 4, copy down 4. And 1, copy down 4. Copy down 1. So as you can see, since 0 is repeated 2 times, we only take 1 representative. So this is the domain of relation S. What about the range? Range is the collection of all y values. Y values? Okay, my y values, they're all here. -1, I have 0, I have -3, I have 1, and I have 2. Well, okay, I'm going to list them all. -1, I have 0, I have -3, I have 1, and I have 2. So the collection of all x values and the collection of all y values, the definition of domain and the definition of range.